Hi, how's your dog doing? So, this is my first scripted Toki Pona video in a while. Fun, let the views roll in. Just kidding. But anyway, let's get to the topic at hand. So, what do I mean by Toki Pona being a polyglot's language or being good for polyglots? Well, a polyglot is a person that speaks many languages, generally 5 or more. A Tokiponist is someone that speaks Toki Pona. Now, since you're watching this video, I would assume that you are a Tokiponist, an aspiring polyglot, or you're already one. So this video is pretty much for you to understand more about the other. I'll explain how becoming a polyglot is good for Tokiponists, and how learning Toki Pona is good for a polyglot or an aspiring polyglot. Okay, let's do this. So first, I'll begin by appealing to my fellow Tokiponists. So what is the benefit of learning other languages or potentially becoming a polyglot as a Tokiponist? Well, learning different languages can provide you with new ways of looking at things when you speak in Toki Pona. For example, you might think that differentiating between your fingers, your hand, and your arm is something that is very necessary, and you just think that Toki Pona doesn't make this distinction due to its simplicity. So you come up with, let's say, the terms palisa luka for fingers, luka for hand, and lukasuli for arm. And you've been using those terms ever since. But then, along your polyglot journey, you find out that there are plenty of natural languages that don't make the distinction between arms, hands, and fingers. And you realize that while these terms can be useful in some situations, for example, if you sustained an injury specifically to your finger but not to your hand, I don't know, just go along with it. You don't really need to differentiate between them most of the time. Okay, this next point will be for polyglots. So as a polyglot, you might be asking why you, as a polyglot trying to learn a variety of languages to read great works of literature and communicate with many different groups of people, would ever want to learn a silly conlang, and not even a more widely spoken one with native speakers like Esperanto. Just kidding. Most polyglots are not like that in any way. In fact, the people who say stuff like that are those who are in contact with polyglots or those who speak many languages and only see languages as being a utilitarian thing and would probably support the creation of an AI that could translate things for us instead of taking the time to learn other languages. Okay, slight rant here, but why do so many people think that linguists and translators will be replaced by AI soon? I'm sorry, but it's not gonna happen anytime soon at least. You're not going to render linguists and translators obsolete. Google Translate is a perfect example of why this is not working and probably will not work for a very long time. Just for an example, this phrase ab urbe condita means from the founding of the city. Now you may ask why someone would ever want to say from the founding of the city, but this is not only the title of a very famous Latin history book by Livy, but it is also a dating system used by Roman historians based on the supposed founding of Rome in 753 BC. 1 AUC using this dating system. Computers are very bad at understanding how language actually works in context, so of course this is expected. This is bad enough with Latin, a very well-documented language. Imagine what it would be like with Toki Pona, a language very dependent on context that can be pretty vague at times and is not very well documented. Just look at how ChatGPT thinks Toki Pona works. It's gonna take a while before any AI can truly get the hang of how language works. Anyway, conlangs are just as fun and useful to learn as natural language. There is an increasing number of people learning Toki Pona that do not speak English, evident by Toki Pona, the language of goods, translation into French, German, and Esperanto. So there are plenty of people that you would only be able to communicate with using Toki Pona, at least in the future, unless you speak any of the aforementioned natural languages. Anyway, Toki Pona can show you how different languages can be. As I said in a previous video, learning Toki Pona's vocabulary and grammar is the easy part. Learning how to use Toki Pona to effectively communicate and to understand it well is the more difficult part. The way I see it, all languages are pretty balanced. They're difficult in some ways and easy in others. It may feel like a chore to learn Chinese characters and tones, but you also get the benefit of not learning a lot of grammatical tables with noun declensions and verb conjugations. At least with Toki Pona, you can get some exposure to the differences between languages with it pretty quickly. Now, for the Tokiponists again. This is a bit more of a minor point, but I still think it's worth mentioning. Learning other languages, especially those from which Toki Pona words are derived, will give you better understanding of the intent when these words were created. For example, the word awen, generally having to do with enduring, permanent, stationary things, and other related concepts, comes from the Dutch word houden. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, which means to keep, care for, or even to hold, engage, and organize. Now, you could have just looked that up, like I did, but if it's a language you're interested in, you'll get first-hand experience as to how the word is used to come up with new ways to use a word to express yourself. Also, it can provide a fun source of new words to coin. For example, kokosila, meaning to speak a non-Toki Pona language in an environment where Toki Pona is more appropriate, comes from the Esperanto word krokodili, which essentially has the same meaning but for Esperanto. And yes, it does ultimately derive from krokodilo, which means crocodile. Somehow. No one really knows where this came from. Alright, one last point for the polyglots, or aspiring polyglots. Toki Pona gives you an opportunity to see how different languages can be while still having similarities. For example, Toki Pona has the same word order as English, SVO. Subject, object, verb, so that's saying I eat food. Technically, there is a way to make Toki Pona have free word order, which is really just an April Fool's joke, which you probably should not use at all, but it does exist. Anyway, the point is that there are similarities you can grasp onto, but then it differs in some pretty fun ways. It could help prepare you if you plan on learning any related languages like the other Germanic languages and the Romance languages. You'll learn to see similarities to help make things easier. Again, Toki Pona's word order is SVO, just like English. But adjectives come after nouns, like in a lot of languages, particularly in many Indo-European languages. Also, Toki Pona doesn't have a copula. Copula is when you use to be to show that something is something. To explain a little more clearly, in English you would say the water is good. However, in Hebrew you would say Hamayim Tovim. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, the word is not there. It just says the water good. Toki Pona doesn't do this either. If you want to say the water is good in Toki Pona, you say Telo li pona. Also, li does not mean is, it's just a third person predicate marker. You'd only think of it as saying water li good. However, if you want to say you are good, you just say Sina pona. You good. You also get to see how different languages see something you might consider to be very basic, like color. For example, there are only 5 color words in Toki Pona: loye, lasso, yellow, walo, and pimea. Red, grew, yellow, white, and black. Lasso means grew, so it can be used for both blue and green. You might think this is nonsensical, but plenty of languages do this. Do you want to learn Russian? Well, Russian has different words for blue and light blue, similar to how English has different words for red and pink. There are other taxonomical things that are different, but that's beyond this video. Now, obviously, these specific features might not apply depending on any other languages you want to learn, but you get the idea. It doesn't matter if you're a Tokiponist who wants to become a polyglot or a polyglot who's considering becoming a Tokiponist. Looking at the other side can help you in either journey. If you're interested in becoming a Tokiponist, I recommend you watch this video for me. If you're interested in becoming a polyglot, I recommend you watch this video for me. If you're interested in both, this would probably be the best video for you. It feels very weird to self-promote, but there you go. Alright, tell your dogs to tie. Alright, this is the first scripted video in a while. That's pretty cool. Do you want to see me make more, or do you prefer the unscripted videos? I really don't know what people want. Anyway, I might make some videos about conlanging, so that might be cool. I don't really have much else to say, so thanks for watching.